This angle with my light on so you can see me better. Um, don't like you can see all my mess behind me, but just put my head here. Anyways, um, so today is Trans Visibility or Day of today's Trans Day of Visibility. So basically, now what people mean when they say visibility is that people don't being invisible to society does not mean that you pass or that nobody discriminates against you or anything like that. It just means that society doesn't recognize your existence so much, or they don't know that you existed at all. A lot of people, when they think of trans, they're aware that trans women exist. Less people are aware that trans men exist, and then from that, even fewer, a significantly lower number are aware that non-binary, gender fluid, and agender, etc. people exist. So one of the main points of it is showing as well that trans people are just everyday people. They're not like, they're not drag queens, they're not, not there's anything wrong with being a drag queen, but drag queens are not transgender people. Anyways, it's just basically showing that, just all the different types of people there that exist that are trans. So I figured I'd do a video about this sort of topic. So basically, I'll go through the different terminology for those that aren't aware. So I've done this before, but I'm going to include more terms in here. I mostly, before, I was just talking about, the difference between drag queens and transsexual and that sort of thing, because I had seen quite a few freaking stuff about this, people mixing up those words. So, okay, so here he goes. So transgender means that you're not cis. That's literally all it means. So a trans person, and what cis means is that you identify with the gender that you were born with, you were assigned at birth, sorry. I'm a little mixing up my words today. So basically, when you were born and the doctor took you out of your mom and was like, oh, it's a boy, or oh, it's a girl, and then throughout the rest of your life you're like, yeah, that sounds right, and you never questioned it or thought it was wrong. So that means if that's the case for you, then you are cisgendered, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a thing that exists. It's not an insult. I know some people think it's a slur, and no, it's just terminology, and it's not a new term either, by the way. The frickin' Romans came up with that. Anyways, moving on. So transgender means you're not cis. So that means that in any way, shape, or form, you do not identify with the gender you were assigned at birth. So I was assigned female at birth, but what make me transgender is I don't identify with that. Even if it's just that you don't identify with all the time, because I'll get into gender fluidity in a bit. So transgender just basically means that. Trans is short for that, and trans is not a slur, but tranny and transvestite are slurs. But trans is just short for transgender, and transgender is not an insult or a slur. Now, sometimes you'll see the trans with the asterisk, and that's supposed to be an umbrella term for all trans identities, but the thing is that he's thinking that transgender is only that you're transitioning to the opposite gender, even though like the idea that there's two genders, and then the asterisk means that the trans now includes things like non-binary and gender fluid. But the thing is that transgender, it's a fairly needless inclusion, because transgender in and of itself just means that you're not cis, so that is already extremely inclusive. So moving on now, so you get the difference between that. Some people will still use the asterisk. There's just really no need. You can just say trans. It's fine. It's kind of a needless thing that they tried to add to make themselves seem more progressive, but it's kind of fucking needless. Kind of like how I find it's really fucking needless that we have homosexual twice in the LGBT, whatever, but we don't have a bunch of other sexual orientations. Anyways, so, moving on, we have transsexual. Now, I've seen some people mix up this term with drag queen type deal, and it's so fucking different. And not all transgender people are transsexual, so obviously a cisgender person wearing clothes that's not for their gender is obviously not going to be transsexual, because transsexual is a transgendered person who has taken medical procedures to change their physical like their body basically, to better identify, so that it matches their identity, their gender identity better. So that could be with hormone therapy or with surgeries or anything like that. Then that makes them transsexual because they've taken medical steps to change their body to the gender that they are instead of the one they were assigned. Next we have non-binary. Now the binary is basically the idea that there's only men and women and like male female, there's nothing else, and a lot of people just find this doesn't fit, it doesn't work. Hello Mitzi. Bonus ferret for cuteness. Anyways, says hello, hello, hello. Anyways, so basically they can use any pronouns or combination thereof, and you just want to go on my computer, don't you? And lick my face. So a lot of people get confused, but believe it or not, they can be used as a singular pronoun. Now, I don't get why everyone's got their bee in their bonnet about this. I know it's such a freaking lame-ass expression, but anyways, because I remember that being a totally accepted thing growing up and whatever, and I see it in places like anime a lot. It seems in Japan, or Japanese to English, it works fine. Because the thing is that it's just a lot easier to say than saying he or she if you're in the mindset that there's only male and female. And I was taught growing up in school I was never taught that they is only plural. I was taught that you can use that in case you don't know the gender, because it just flows a lot nicer than he or she to begin with. But then people who aren't a he or a she will use it to use as their pronoun instead, because there you go. But then there's also a bunch of other pronouns that people have come up with, like with the X or a Z or whatever else. So basically it can get a little confusing, but most non-binary people are okay with they. So, but of course talk to them about what they which one they use or whatnot like that. So respect gender pronouns here, that's always a good idea. And then agender is sort of, instead of being like a third gender or an additional gender with some non-binary, non-binary means anyone who's not he or she, so that's, you know, quite a large spectrum, but agender are non-binary. It's kind of like all agenders are non-binary, but not all non-binary are agender. Oh yeah, another term for non-binary that you might have heard is genderqueer. Anyways, so agender is kind of the idea is like I don't have a gender. It just, nothing fits, and I'm without gender. So that's how that kind of works there. So again, sort of same pronouns though that go with the non-binary people, and a lot of people think, oh, isn't binary code information and stuff like that? How the heck does that relate to gender? Binary, the reason why we use that term for coding is because you'll notice that it has Latin bi in there, which means two, like bicycle, bisexual, etc. And that's because it's, you know, there's two numbers being used in that code system, 0 and 1. That's why it's called the binary there. So it's literally just that. It's saying that there's only the ability to use two. That's what binary means. So there you go. It works for gender because the ability to use two genders, the only ability to use two numbers. That's how it works altogether. Anyways, moving on. So then there's also gender fluid, which is basically people who aren't always the same gender, and depending on the day or the month, or it can change really frequently for some, or completely infrequently, like they can go months as one gender and then they'll feel more the other gender, and that's completely valid at any point of their identity. But yeah, it's basically they don't always feel like they're the same gender. They'll feel like they're a boy or male or whatever the hell one day or 1 month or whatever the hell period of time. Then another period of time they feel like they're a woman. Another period of time they don't feel like they have gender. Another period of time they feel like they are non-binary or genderqueer. And every single one of those is valid, and there's nothing wrong with anyone who's transgender. And gender fluid, I find, is the one that people have the hardest time wrapping their heads around, and they think, oh, well, you're just being indecisive or make up your mind kind of thing, the same thing that bisexuals and pansexuals tend to hear, but it is completely valid. And as someone who's experienced that, it can be a little, it was really confusing to figure out to begin with. And when I first heard gender fluid, I was like, okay, if that's okay, whatever, I'm not gonna diss or anyone. But for a while I was always trying to figure it out, because I would be like, sometimes I'd be like, yeah, I'm a girl, what are you talking about, I'm not trans, fuck off. No, but I'm joking, I wasn't that. Anyways, it was all internal, I wasn't actually saying this out loud to anyone. And then sometimes I'd be like, someone would use more feminine traits to me, like they would say, oh, you have to be a lady, and I'm like, I'm not a lady. And they're like, well, you are a girl, so you gotta act like kind of lady like when you're in this situation. And I'm like, I guess I am a girl, fuck. And and even when I'm feeling more masculine, I'll talk with a lower voice, and I'll be more kind of like it's been observed in almost all gender fluid people, which is why it's less it's like scientifically point of view, from like watching their behavior, their actual behavior, their voice, their conduct, and everything else reflects the typical gender of that, like either being a girl, a boy, or something in between, or something outside entirely. So it was really confusing for me, because I was like, am I transgender, am I not transgender? But the biggest thing, I found this on Tumblr after I'd already figured it out, but is, if you are asking the question, how do I know if I'm trans, or am I trans, then you're trans, because cis people don't wonder, because obviously there's something about your gender that the gender you were assigned that doesn't quite fit, which is why you're asking. So if you're asking, that means that you are most likely, in the trans situation. And there is a lot of discrimination against trans people, and it's really nasty, and it's gotten to the point where, not gotten to the point, it is the fact that trans people, their life expectancy is between 20 and 30 compared to 70 and 80 for non-trans people, so cis people, because of suicide and murder. There is a lot of fucking murder, and believe it or not, but in 49 of the 50 states of America, I don't know what it is in Canada, I should probably look that shit up though, it is legal to kill someone because they were trans, and if the reason why you're killing them is because they're trans, then you can get away with murder. Like, that's fucked up. I don't think it should be legal for anyone to kill anyone for any reason other than self-defense. Like, come on, dude. It's kind of fucked up. Because in self-defense, you're freaking trying to get the guy to stop killing you, and sometimes, it happens. But just because, oh my god, they're trans, this is such, a shock to my system, I can't handle it, I gotta kill them. Like, that's so fucked up. Like, oh my god, it's like, how the fuck is that still legal? I mean, that was actually a legal thing for gay people too, and it's just, what the serious fuck? But yeah, anyway, so if you have any questions about gender or anything else, or you're questioning it yourself, feel free to contact me. If you're gonna be an asshole and pretend and just, give transphobia and hate and bullshit and pretend to ask about gender and just being a dick about it, don't message me, please, or don't contact me or comment or whatever. But yeah, stay beautiful, everyone, and don't commit suicide, because you're beautiful, and it may be hard, but I'm really bad with these types of talks, and don't be an asshole to people who are trans. They can't control it it's been scientifically proven that trans people can't help being trans, so it's just like with sexual orientation or race or gender, like born male or female or whatever the fuck, like they can't control this shit, so leave them the fuck alone, alright? Thanks for watching.